Hey, everybody, and welcome to part 4 of This Is Not a Podcast. And still, to this day, this is not a podcast. This is going to be part 1 of a two-parter where we'll be discussing whether or not school is glorified babysitting. Today, I'll be presenting 3 reasons why you probably should think that school is glorified babysitting, and then next time, we'll talk about why it isn't. This discussion isn't meant to be disparaging towards educators. I'm an educator myself, but it is important to think critically about this, and I think it's an important component within a critical analysis of this very important part of society. So, if we want to think about school as babysitting, we really should point out, first of all, that education seems to be geared towards children. And specifically children from the ages of 4 until 18, more or less. And the first age, is dependent on when the child is not 100% dependent on the mother. So usually when they've stopped breastfeeding and when they're toilet trained, until the second age, when they're legally an adult, right? So education is actually geared towards children. There's no reason to believe that people stop needing education after they are legally an adult. My personal experience would suggest that people actually learn a lot more when they're adults than when they're children. But we do seem to be fixated on these years. Secondly, education occurs within work hours. So these are the hours where parents would not be able to be with their children. So education will happen somewhere starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. It'll end somewhere around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And of course, we have other programs which are also considered educational. So supervised studies, tutoring, sports clinics, etc., which fill in the gap for parents who works, until, let's say, 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. As far as I can tell, there is no evidence that children should be starting to learn at 8 o'clock in the morning and end at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. What's been brought to my attention is that people seem to do better when they've had a full cycle of rest. They've had some time to kind of get the mental motor running, and then they can do their quote unquote learning. So instead of 8 a.m., you might actually need to start somewhere around 11 a.m. Thirdly, educators will basically be parental figures. So there's this notion that teachers should care about the student as a whole. And this is something that we don't really expect from anyone at a professional capacity. Except for maybe religious leaders, now that I think about it, but I might be wrong about that. So what I mean is that we do actually expect teachers to go the extra mile for children, to care about their development, to inspire them to do things. And the only people who would normally do this are parents. We also don't monetize that inspiration thing. That is to say that you could imagine that if you have 100 students that you see every day, that if you were expected to inspire all 100 of them over the course of 10 months, that you would actually require a huge amount of compensation. And we don't really do that. In the same way that as a society, we don't pay parents, even though parents, of course, are responsible for the next generation of this society. So we've kept that responsibility in the abstract, and we don't monetize it. And I find that to be very, I find those two things of parental guidance and that inspiration and care that's expected from teachers to overlap. And I think that fundamentally they come from the same, or maybe not from the same place, but they have a very similar effect. So bearing all this in mind, that education happens with children during the time that their parents are not allowed or are not able to be with them, and that the care that teachers are expected to give their students reflects or is similar to parental care, suggests that education is glorified babysitting. So next time we'll talk about how they're different, and then we'll talk about what all this implies. So we'll just draw some ideas. As always, if you think that I'm full of crap, please do let me know. I've been receiving little comments here and there, and I've been greatly appreciative of them. They've made me think a lot about what I've said over the past couple of days, and I'm very, very happy that you are all part of my continuing education. So, as always, please take care, and I look forward to what you guys have to say.